Evening, and this board meeting will come to order. Leading our pledge tonight will be Kiko Terry and Peyton Turney. Thank you, guys. Great job. I invite everyone to join the board in a moment of silence. Thank you. Of course, we met Tuesday night in work session and discussed several of our items, and we'll move to approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Holliday and Mr. Hodge. Further discussion, questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Approval of the consent agenda.
So moved.
Mr. Estes?
Second.
Mr. Young? Discussion, questions? Good. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. And we're going to move to number 7, Mr. Odom.
Number 7 is recognition tonight, and Mr. Zago is going to recognize some students that we received information from the state. This is a really good award. So
I'm very honored to be here tonight to recognize these 4 exceptional writers. We've had several exceptional writers across the school system over the past year. These 4 writers were selected and sent to the director of schools and had perfect scores. Once again, we had a few other perfect scores in our schools, but they were recognized in their schools by their administration and teachers there. But these were sent to Mr. Odom for recognition here. I'm going to go ahead and read the names. As I read your name, if you'll come forward. Grant Tiller. Peyton Turney.
turn around the other way and you'll be on TV.
Kiko Terry. And Thelma Yankee. Once again, boys and girls, you're on TV tonight, so you'll be able to go back home and look on YouTube or on the Rutherford County channel and see yourselves receive these perfect writing scores. Once again, thank you so much for working so hard and practicing your writing and doing the right things in the classroom. Thank you. I may add that the writing scoring changed last year to a much more rigorous scoring. The number of writers that scored the way these 4 did, it was exponentially lower, so they are exceptional.
Schools, and I believe their administrators are here.
Yes, sir, they are. Would any of the administrators like to come forward and say anything about the writing program or your students here? I know you're here to honor them as well. It's pretty much what I
would
thought, Chairman Blair.
any of your students like to say something about it? What did you What about the writing experience? What did you think about it? Any comment? They just write.
We'll be getting speaking awards later.
Okay.
Thank you again, guys.
Congratulations again.
I'd also like to thank their parents. They're here and the family supporting them. I know those students would like to thank their parents and family for supporting them in their education as well.
And thank you, parents. Congratulations. I'm sorry, board
Right.
members, any comments? Very proud and pleased of your success. I think we all wish we had that talent. Well, maybe Mr. Holliday does have that talent. Number 8.
Number 8 is courses offered for credit in grades 9 through 12. Board of Education Policy 4.201 states in part, a listing of courses offered for credit in grades 9 through 12 will be approved annually by the board. Recommend approval. The motion is to approve the list of courses for credit in Rutherford County Schools grades 9 through 12 for the 2016-2017 year as presented.
Heard the motion?
So moved.
Mr. Young
Second.
and Mr. Estes. Further discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 9.
Number 9 is some special courses. That's in tab 3. The instruction department is requesting permission to make an application to offer credit for special courses under the following guidelines. Rule 520-1-3-.05-2A, local school systems may offer special courses not listed in 520-1-3-.06 on an experimental basis. The Commissioner of Education must approve each course in advance each year. After 3 years, the course may become a permanent part of the local school program upon approval by the State Board of Education. And after 3 years, the special course request must be resubmitted if the teacher listed on the application changes. Recommend approval. Motion to approve Rutherford County making application for new special courses to be offered in the named schools in 2016-2017. If people are listening to us on the TV or something, that's in the rules and regulations that every department in Tennessee, justice, law enforcement, education have rules and regs, and these are the ones that cover education. But if you'd like to look at them, they are online.
So moved.
Mr. Hodge
Second.
and Mr. Holliday. Further discussion or questions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Number 10, Mr. Odom.
I believe Mr. Clardy is going to update us and bring us update on some work that's going on this evening.
We are very busy at this time. We're have several things going, and one of the things we are doing right now is the Rocky Fork clearing and grubbing. And we're getting to the point where about 90% complete up there with the detention pond, and we're also getting ready to stabilize the site by seeding and strawing it. So I have some pictures. We have a cemetery study that's complete, and we're doing site design right now. Can you see that with the lights on? Can you see it okay? I'll take that as a yes. This is the detention pond we're working on. You can see we're burning stuff. You can see the power line at the back of the site. Just getting it all cleared out. There's the detention pond. 75 acres. And the cemetery that is there has 40 graves in it. So we're looking at incorporating that into the site design right now without relocating it. There's your power lines at the back, and just getting it cleared. And then next, we're moving to John Coleman. We're putting in our site drain. We're just now getting the site in such shape that we can put the perimeter drive around to redirect all the traffic and the drop off and pickup. They're just, we're, placing concrete. You can see how the masonry's going up. We have part of the slab in. It's basically masonry, and we also have the geothermal in process right now up on the northeast corner of the site. And there's the drilling rigs that are drilling, and you can see the site work there with that catch basin that is has been installed.
I went by there this morning, and it was raining and sleeting, and they were hard at it. It's, the school itself is very excited about the progress.
Good. We're the contractor is really cooperating with us to try to get it ready. We're going to move into it, we anticipate, during the Christmas break. This, next. It could be ready sooner. Hopefully it will be, but we'll see. Of course, we just re-roofed the central office roof. I don't know if y'all have noticed the work that's been going on there for a few weeks, but it's complete now, with the exception of a few items on the punch list. We're moving up to Laverne Primary re-roof, and you can see we're getting set up there and getting ready for the material to arrive. These are part of the capital projects money that we get from the county every year through that nickel that we talked about. And then the Roy Waldron School addition is right in step with John Coleman. It's smaller, and then we've just about got all the utilities on the site and all the site work done, with the exception of our finished grading and stuff. You can see that we're in a process of masonry all over the site. This week they have started the bar joist on the second floor. And you can see this is all up to bar joist bearing here, all the masonry is, with a slab poured on the first floor. Plumbing going in, and electrical stuff is in process, main power. Storm drainage, you can see there. Masonry everywhere, tying at the building. And also, we are getting close to, we've been removing the wall in the gym for the stage. That blows out just a little bit toward the front, and a stage goes in the gym with some rearrangement of those small rooms up front at the entry. So they're in the process of getting that all cleaned out and ready to put some beams in there to carry the masonry above the stage area. Smyrna Elementary School gymnasium bleachers, this is part of our capital improvements for this year. You can see they're completed. And at some point we would like to put a different floor in there. So as that arrives or comes down on a list, and we're not going to put wood in there, but this tile is in need of replacing, so we'll do that at some point. Then paving, We are currently planning Riverdale and Oakland paving projects as soon as we can get a break in the weather and can do some excavating. Hopefully next week they will be on site to start those two projects. And those will give extra paving to both of those schools. They're hurting. If you ride by there during the day, you'll see them parking in the grass, and it's there's a lot more people driving cars these days. There's several issues that we have with seal coat and striping, so we're in a process of getting all those scheduled now with things warming up and weather drying out. You remember the money for the basketball goal safety straps? The county's general liability consultant told us we needed new straps, so we took that out of funding, and we've installed 125 straps at about $400 a piece. These things are like your seat belts in your car. If it feels a sudden movement, it'll lock it up and hold it in place. So I just wanted everyone to know that those were complete, because there's kind of an issue with it when we started looking for that money. And I'll just show you what they look like. If you see to the right there, it's just to the left of the light. That is a strap. You see the bar on the left that comes down at a diagonal, that's a strap that runs parallel with that, and up the box, up the top, there's a little reel up there that has a locking device in it. So we've put 125 of those in on different goals at different schools. You can get a little bit better picture of the box there. And at Riverdale, we just took a couple pictures close. There's a box up there, parallel with the cable that's moving that up and down. You can see it there. And then portables. We're moving 5 portables this year, and I believe there's 2 doubles and 3 singles that are relocating. And we have our newest employee working on those, Mr. Drew Hodge. He's done a good job and getting a good dose of reality. And that's it. I'd be glad to answer any questions you have.
Mr. Clardy, could you go back to Rocky Fork? I'm not sure I quite understood what you were describing as far as how the cemetery is going to be handled.
The cemetery, I'm not sure that, I think there's going down to, there's a group of trees out there you will see, and I believe that is the cemetery. Yeah, I can't see it very well, but I think that is the cemetery right in that area. There's 40 graves in there, and we're in the process of trying to make sure that that area will fit into our plan as we design the site for the buildings, the elementary and the middle school. If we can work it, we will leave it there and leave it undisturbed. If it doesn't work out to our satisfaction, then we will go to court, get an order, which is we did at Stewart's Creek, and get permission from a judge to relocate those. Out by the street where we have that corner, were you with us up there the other day? Did you ride out there with us to the...
This past weekend.
On Rocky Fork, there's a broad area to the south of the construction entrance, and we would relocate them into that area, close to the road, to give better access. And that's what we call the Towns Cemetery, and there's only a few of the graves are identified as who they are through some old records and things, and they were all Towns was the name of the family. And then I believe there's probably some slaves buried there in different old graves that are only marked with a stone, no carvings or anything.
So, but the goal is to try to leave it intact if possible.
It is.
Thank you.
How are you doing on timeline for Roy Waldron? What's forecasted open?
It will be open at the end of this coming summer for the fall session of 2016.
You're looking at August 16.
Yes.
Great.
Anybody else? Great job, Mr. Clardy. Thank you.
Thank you.
Number 11.
We've got B, Siegel Middle, that B in that one.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I miss that one? I
think.
did.
Siegel Middle School marquee sign. Principal Kim Stoker has requested permission to replace the school's existing sign with a new one. The new marquee will be located at the existing sign location. The cost of the foundation, brick columns, and marquee is estimated at $12,000. The materials and brick labor will be funded through school fundraisers. The marquee will be lighted, and Rutherford County Schools Maintenance will install the electrical line, form and place the footings, and install the sign. The new marquee will be approximately 9 feet wide by 7 feet 6 inches high. Principal Stoker has completed all the engineering and construction department requirements and will be responsible for all permits and for meeting all local and state code requirements. Recommend approval of the motion to approve construction of a new marquee sign at Siegel Middle School to replace the existing as presented.
So move.
Mr. Jordan and Mr. Estes. Discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
11 is our revised policies. Policy 3.206, community use of school facilities. The revision allows a one-year approval for an initial request and annual renewals thereafter for a maximum of 10 years. The revised policy also includes a detailed fee schedule. Policy 5.302, sick leave. The revision provides employees with 2 bereavement leave days per qualifying event. Policy 1.108, nepotism. The revision removes the requirement to publicly notify the board prior to the employment of a relative of a board member, director of schools, administrator, county commissioner, or any appointed or elected official. The revision is recommended by TSBA in order to comply with current state law. Policy 5.305, the Family Medical Leave Act. The revision changes the word "or" to the word "and" in the first paragraph of the policy regarding eligibility for family and medical leave. The revision is recommended by Tennessee School Board Association in order to comply with current federal regulations. Recommend approval. The motion to approve the revisions to Policy 3.206, 5.302, 1.108, and 5.305 on first reading as recommended by the Policy Committee.
Motion?
So moved.
Mr. Hodge?
Second.
Mr. Estes. Discussion?
We discussed this and have discussed it and discussed it. And I was concerned the last time that we met about the hourly fee. I wasn't sure it was addressed, and y'all assured me that it was, and of course you were right. I do have one question on the, I'm looking at the fee. Gym for junior sports groups only. I didn't really recall that. I should have noticed this before. I don't know what a junior sports group is. If it's AAU basketball, that's fine. If they want to practice, that's a very reasonable fee per an hour of practice, $18 per hour. But do they fall under that group, a junior sports group?
I just assumed it was junior pro basketball.
Well, could they fall under that then, I guess, is another way of me asking it. In other words, I think they should fall under that. And there's a big difference between them coming out and practicing, even with some players that are not from the county, AAU basketball, which is extremely important to our basketball coaches, and they're going to pay $18 an hour, which we feel will recoup the taxpayer dollars. Could AAU fall under that as well? I mean,
Mr. Reed?
If you want to define, if the board wants to define AAU as falling within that junior sports category, the board can do that.
do I need to make that motion?
Need to clarify that.
I think so.
Well, then, Mr. Young, what do you think? I mean,
I'm good with it.
okay.
Mr. Jordan,
Yes,
before,
sir.
if I could, I've also gotten some feedback from the community, and I continue to get feedback from the community. And while it's, I'm going to hang on to revisions that I have in mind until the second reading, and I'm not suggesting that that has to be the way, but I just thought I would mention that. Not to squelch discussion at all. I don't intend that, but I just was going to share that because I've got a concern as well.
Well, all right. If you don't want to do that tonight, that's fine. That's certainly your prerogative. I have no idea what you have in mind, but I think I need to go ahead and revise this on first reading and just add AAU, just gym for junior sports groups only and AAU. I'd like to amend it to read that way, $18 per, well, it says $18 per hour.
That is your motion.
That is my motion, my amendment, I guess.
Did you get? I did. Okay.
I'll second.
Mr. Hodges seconded. Further discussion on this amendment?
I guess I just got a question. Mr. Holliday, if you got something, I mean, I'd like to hear it tonight. I mean, not to put you on the spot, I'm just saying, and the only reason I'm asking this versus having a second reading, if you got something, I'd like to see it, hear it tonight if you can.
Yeah.
Just to where I have time to think about it.
Absolutely, and I'm happy to share it. I've asked our board attorney and our staff attorney both to help me to understand and decipher educational entities that are using our facilities and whether or not our language is permissive to allow for partnerships where we have kind of in-kind relationships, whether it's with institution of higher education or institutions that are community institutions but have an educational purpose. And so it has been our practice that we have not charged those groups. It may be the board's wish to charge those groups, possibly charge them in some reduced rate, possibly, allow them on a case-by-case exemption, or to acknowledge the in-kind relationship that we have with these entities where they're providing educational experiences and opportunities. Specifically, I'm thinking about Motlow Community College, MTSU, Lipscomb University, and then there are community organizations and one that I serve on the board on as well, which will, when we come to voting, elicit one of those statements from me that I have an interest here, that I'm voting in the best interest, and I'll say that later. But the ethos music ensembles that a lot of our student musicians participate in. All of these are entities that involve our students doing the educational activities that they are typically doing in those facilities, and yet it's not something that's in our hours. And the attorneys are checking into it. They had other obligations this week, but on second reading, that's what I'm going to come around with.
Good. I mean, I appreciate that. I mean, I mean, it makes sense to me. I just, and you were specific in what, you know, the other institutions, that sort of answered some of my question, I guess.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions for Mr. Reed? We have a motion and a second for this amendment to this policy. Further discussion? All in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
And I'll abstain.
Okay. Ms. Michael, thank you, Mr. Reed. The amendment is passed.
Okay, so we've got a vote coming now on all four of these, right? Is that correct? Well, we just approved an amendment
We've already got a motion and a second on that, don't we, Mr.?
Yes, we do.
on the full thing? Okay, I just want to comment, and anybody else is certainly welcome to comment too on the, and I'm again referring to I have no objection to any of them, and I just want to comment on the first one, the policy again on school use facilities. I think that this board, and as part of a policy committee, and the committee that I was proud to serve on, that came up with this policy, and I believe we've done about everything that I know to do to make it fair for the taxpayers of Rutherford County and for the groups that are involved, without passing it. And I'm one thing I'm pretty certain of. This is probably not a perfect policy. It's probably not perfect. It's probably something in here that we have should have addressed and didn't, or whatever. But I think we need to go ahead and pass it, at least on first reading, and go ahead and get it out there and enforce it, and then we can come back at a later time and tweak it if we have failed to be completely fair and open it above board to everyone. So that's kind of my feeling, and I intend to support the motion, which recommended passage.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else? Yes, sir, Mr. Holliday.
As we approach the vote, I will inform the fellow board members and the public that on policy 3.206, I do serve on a board for another organization that from time to time uses Rutherford County schools, and this is a policy that will affect them. Nonetheless, my vote tonight reflects the best interest of my constituents and Rutherford County schools.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. Anybody else? We have a motion and a second. We've had discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? First reading passes.
Correct.
Okay. And again, my thanks are on behalf of the board to Mr. Young for chairing that committee, and you, Mr. Jordan, for serving, and all the other members, because, again, you covered, there was a lot of detail work involved, and it was complicated, and you worked through it. It took you a little time, as we figured it might. So again, thank you. You did do your due diligence. Number 12 was taken care of on Tuesday in the work session. Chairman Hodge, anything on legislative network?
No, sir.
Okay, covered that again. Mr. Holliday, Federal Relations Network.
No report right now.
Wow, all's quiet on the front, I guess. So we continue to watch legislation, and thank you, Chairman Hodge, for watching, and you also, Mr. Holliday, on the federal aspect, and of course, Mr. Odom is certainly keeps his eye on it too. So thank you. Number 15 is general discussion. I will tell you that Mr. Odom spoke to the Smyrna Rotary Club today, and basically gave them a preview of what we and the County Health and Ed Commission committee had an opportunity to see, and I think several of my fellow Rotary members were pretty wide-eyed, Mr. Odom, seeing the growth and everything this district has accomplished and continues to work towards. So thank you for your presentation, which was excellent, and I think it was a good community initiative. A lot of business women and men, they see a lot more about what's going on in our community through our education system. Anybody else?
When's the last day for the state legislature? Do we do actually know a last day?
Well, there's not a schedule.
Right.
It's as they work through their log jam of bills, but it has gone as far in the past, it has gone into May. But last year, Chairman Hodge, didn't they end into April or something?
I'm not for sure.
I think they.
They have a certain number of days that they can meet, though. That's not a question, really. I realize it could go pretty late, although.
I have no idea. That may be something Mr. Reed might know. I don't know if there's a extent of the legislative year. Okay.
They said at the beginning of this session, though, that it's election year, of course, and that they wanted to get down there and get all the bills introduced within the very, very little time, very first few days. And I think they had an early cutoff of legislation, I think earlier than it's ever been. And then they were, going to rule on that. Of course, I continue to be worried, as are you, on the voucher bill, that it bothers me that it's just laying there. It really does. This past weekend, I got curious and I just went online to see, because I think Nashville Christian School said they weren't going to accept any vouchers, and so I got thinking about that a little bit. Anyway, I went and looked to see what the tuition was at very, very close to where I lived during the summers for a while with my grandmother, right across the street from MBA. And so I went and just looked to see what the tuition was at MBA for a year, and also checked out Brentwood Academy. And I don't know that I even had a reasonable guess in mind, but suffice to say that it's over $25,000 a year. $25,000 a year. So I thought, well, okay. And so I continued to read the website of Brentwood Academy and MBA. I didn't go any deeper than that. I could have gone to Father Ryan and whatever, but I've got a life also. So anyway, I found out that they do give grants, of course, and scholarships, which is not particularly if you can dunk and catch passes and run like the wind. But anyway, and their average is about $10,000 a year. So I thought, okay, $10,000 a year grant. Let's assume you get that. And the state and the voucher program is going to give you $6.5. All right, let's round. That's $17,000 a year. They're still $7,000 short. Now, as a student that is in the lower 5% of the schools, going to come up with $7,000 a year, and I'm almost sure that the answer to that is no. They're not going to have it. And I think this is and that's true. We got lots of private schools, and I just named two great ones, but there are a lot of them out there all over the state. It just doesn't seem like to me that this is going to work if it passes. It's just not going to work. I just don't see how. And I'm almost done. We better be careful, because the last day, whenever that is, of the legislature is coming up, and that bill's laying there, and I'm worried about its passage without debate or discussion or amendment. And they had 27 amendments when it started out. That's why they pulled it. Thank you. I ranted. I apologize.
I have found since that actually flow-through, where they suspend the rules, can be the last 2 weeks. So up until they suspend the rules, they have to vote with, I think, with a 50-member majority to take it off the clerk's desk. So, but of course, if they did that, then that would give us an opportunity to continue to contact them and voice our opposition to vouchers. So we'll just have to wait and see, but continue to let them know that we are in opposition.
I didn't, I'm sorry, Mr. Blair, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't say that, I did say I went to check Brentwood Academy, but I didn't give you a figure for there. But Brentwood Academy was also just a touch over $25,000. So I think these are, of course, I just think it's a dangerous situation for a lot of students. I don't think they're going to be able to take advantage of this. I really do not think the people they're targeting, and Mr. Holliday has made this point 5 times in here, and he's exactly right. The people that they want to benefit from this are not going to benefit. If they don't get that money, if they don't get that voucher, then it reverts to any child in that county, right? That has a lower performing school, and then you know who's going to get the money. It will not be the student that really needs it. I don't think. I'm hoping that the legislators just don't understand this. I mean, but I know they do. But I'm really hoping that they don't, because this is not going to do what they want it to do.
No, it'll do much worse, because what will end up happening is that it will take resources away from public education in this state. And the bill that is also there that removes the constitutional amendment initiative that removes the mandate that is upon our state legislature to provide a free and equitable public education to students in the state of Tennessee, which takes away one of the primary arguments of how is this equal? If we're leaving a failing school there in order to go to a private entity, we are waiving the surrender that we just can't accomplish the task of education. And that is failure of the legislature to do their constitutional duty. Yeah.
Put another way, they don't want to take the time or trouble to fix the schools. They're not interested in doing that, evidently. This is an easy way to do it, and it's an expensive way to do it, and it's going to benefit a whole bunch of people that don't live anywhere near the state of Tennessee, and certainly not Rutherford County. And what they need to do, obviously, you've made this point repeatedly, so has Mr. Hodge, fix the schools, attack that problem. And we would. Matter of fact, we take action every day. This board does, and many of you have taken it a lot longer than I have, and people that came before you have tried to make sure that we didn't have any schools that fell into this group. And it costs money and time and effort, and it's hard to do. I don't think the state gets that. I don't think they understand that at all. They're just going to throw money at it, your money, and mine too, and you wonderful people watching on TV. It'll be your money.
Evidence of that is in what we passed tonight, a list of courses that included Latin, German, advanced chemistry, advanced entomology. These are courses that we teach in Rutherford County schools, not in some private school somewhere, not some specialized circumstance. Advanced entomology we're teaching at Laverne High School, not at Central Magnet. At Central Magnet, we're teaching impressive things there as well. But at any and every one of our schools, we have that kind of academic rigor. It's just, there is an example in Rutherford County of how to fix those failing schools. And that's what our legislators should be representing.
Concur. Were you going to cover this tonight?
How would you like a little report maybe on testing or something? Would you like to hear an update on that?
I think so.
Commissioner's update comes out on Wednesday, and it was yesterday afternoon, and the update said this time that there are 18 remaining school districts that have not received their test. I did exchange a text with Musburg City with Dr. Gilbert today, and they were one of the ones that still haven't received it either. They were supposed to have saved the ones that hadn't received it to the 5 largest districts were supposed to get them last. And they're to be shipped somewhat time between March 3rd and March 8th. Now, what we're concerned about is once they're shipped, there's separate printed labels that have to be affixed to it and all. So I'm gonna give you some numbers as probably the sound bite of the evening to look at it. If we look at our 3 through 8, those students will be taking a social studies, a math, and an English language arts. There's 19,252 of those, so we're talking about 58,000 tests. And so when you then pick up high school, you got Algebra 1, Algebra 2, Geometry, U.S. History. Every grade is basically included there with a test. So that kicks in another 11,415. So the state will be asking us on this, if we get them late, sometime next week, to affix these 70,000 labels, get them sorted to the schools for the teachers and the people to give them. The timeline is really, really tough. People in Williamson County are saying we're going to have people work all night to try to do it. And I don't have quite as many as we do, but I'm just saying that it is really an enormous task given the deadlines that they have set. Now, the second test that'll be later this fall will kick in science. So instead of 3 tests, all of those 19,000 will take 4 tests when you get to that one. But we're Mr. Zago and Mr. Kubley is testifying. We're very concerned that will we be able to get all of this done and then packed up and sent back. We have to test it the week of the 14th and supposed to within those 5 days. It's actually 4 days of testing, 1 day of makeup. So that's the dilemma and the stretch that we're in to meet the deadlines that they've set for testing. Although they haven't really kept their deadlines for shipping. We were to get them February 29th.
And I'm not confident in their deadline for grading the test.
I have a question, as I always do. If the tests were to be mailed out, shipped to the largest school systems last, why does Davidson County already have theirs?
I have asked that question. I have not gotten an answer.
Pretty good question there. I'm sure that somebody will get right back to me with an answer.
I have a question also.
Ms. Moore and then Ms. Young.
Well, and I have a suggestion, which I normally do. Anyway, I'm just wondering why we don't recommend to the state that they require Measurement Inc. to send all the staff down here, their staff, to affix the labels on all these tests. Just a thought.
They'll get back with you on that,
Yeah,
too.
I'm sure they will.
Mr. Young?
My question is, if the tests aren't going to count, do we have an option to opt out of these tests? And
They've not given us an option that I've seen to do that. When you say it's not going to count, it's highly, highly likely that they're not going to have the grades back in time to do that statutory requirement that it's 25% of their grade in middle and high school. I don't think that will come back, but sometime after this, students will receive a labeling of proficient or basic, below proficient, advanced. That wasn't even scheduled to come sometime in the fall, but so from that standpoint, that the students are going to have some information that comes back attached to that. I guess another thing that concerns me is schools and school districts are all going to be labeled by this. They did do a waiver for teachers, basically, that they could opt out for it, but they haven't done it for schools, school districts, or students.
Something else that annoys me greatly, and evidently a lot of things do, but that it seems like that they act, in the State Department of Education, they act like this is all we've got to do. Like this is not going to run into something else, and I have not discussed this with him one bit, but I'm going to ask him, what kind of problems, Mr. Zago, does this make the longer this gets put off before we get our test? What do we got coming up? Thank you. Circling.
within as much time as possible to get that put together. It's going to be an extreme feat to get that done.
Of course, I've been out of it for a long time, but we got an extensive curriculum that we're supposed to cover by May 31st or so.
Yes,
and
sir.
This delay is just maddening.
I'm here twisting this paperclip pretty bad right now, but Mr. Odom spoke to the county. This will count because we use these assessments to place students too. You have to remember, we count on these assessments to be valid, so our students need to be diligent in taking these assessments. And even though there's a possibility of some exemptions, at the end of the school year, the system and the schools are still going to be held accountable for those scores. There is no possibility exemption there for that. So once again, Rutherford County and each individual school of the 46 schools will be held accountable for our scores. I'll say that again, there's no provision for exemption there.
I'm going to predict that somehow, some way, because they almost always do, our teachers, staff, students are going to come through. I believe they will.
Ms. Jordan, I'll second that one for sure, because they're the best there are in the state.
They sure make it hard down there, I tell you.
Anything else that you want to cover, Mr. Odom?
Also, just wanted y'all to understand the task that's before us right now, as it looks. You want to tell them about the meeting we had earlier in the week, and that this sheet was kind of mentioned in, and if you want Jeff to explain it, we can do it. Do you want to do that?
Yes, just talking about at the courthouse. Last year began the budget year with Mr. Odom and I and Mr. Sandvig meeting with Mayor Burgess and Chairman Will Jordan and Finance Director for the county, Lisa Nolan, just to make sure everybody was on the same page, that no one would be blindsided, that they would have a good working knowledge of what we would be bringing to them, and that they would share with us their thoughts as far as funding. And we initiated that again this year, and Mr. Sandvig was there, and we had lively conversation about funding, but probably a detail that I'm not sure that I actually understood some of the very complex part of this formula that Mr. Sandvig is about to explain right now. Are you not?
Ms. Nolan and Mr. Sandvig, they kind of had the two accountants in the room had their discussion a little bit.
And I didn't understand a single word they said.
But the document that you have in front of you is one of the things that the mayor picked up on and talked about, and he's going to kind of give you a brief look at that, if you could.
The leftmost bar of the graph and the numbers below that are Rutherford County's BEP allocation. That is our state BEP funding plus the required local match. Next to the last line, for the current fiscal year, $257.7 million. The next bar over is our general purpose school budget, $326.1 million. And what I was trying to do was analyze where we are, BEP allocation versus our actual budget. The component that I selected to get apples to apples comparison to the best I could is the teachers and their benefits in the instructional component. There's an instructional component, a classroom component, a non-classroom component, which includes administrative positions outside of the schools, transportation, maintenance. There's a capital budgeting component in there also. So if you look at the two bars, you'll see the yellow section, 105.5, same in both pieces. The orange, 38.2 million.
He's colorblind.
That's green.
Yes.
He really is.
Oh, well. That's why I avoid colors in what I give you. The blue, 32.9 million. The blue piece shows, okay, there is a funding teacher component, 42,000, I want to say $65, but I haven't looked at that since early in the week. Well, this blue piece shows our average teacher salary, our average benefits cost for these BEP-generated teaching positions. In the formula, we have 2,624 and a half BEP-generated teaching positions. This blue bar shows our actual cost for those 2,600 plus positions above this BEP allocation number. This is entirely local funding. The top bar, 34.4 million, is that orange?
Yes.
Okay. That shows our cost for these classroom positions where we have more positions than the BEP formula generates. And we feel strongly we need these positions in order to produce the quality education we try to produce at all of our schools. No system, unless you had one school and only had 20, 25, or 30 kids in the appropriate categories, could you only have the BEP-generated positions. That is impossible. The second page is really for the accountants, but I wanted to show you, I have the colors tying from the legal size page to the summary graph. And that just shows you, where I went into the BEP formula and moved forward and calculated stuff.
But the bottom line is that we pay 50.1%.
50.1.
And the state pays 49.9.
Right. The theoretical, and it varies somewhat. If you look in the second column of numbers over on that first page, you'll see 26.7% and 73.3%. This component, theoretically, the state funds at 75%. We are funded slightly at 73.3% because of that mix, our TASER and our Fox indices. We are a bit higher than that state average. So we pay more on the local basis. But this component is theoretically funded at 75% across the state. If you look over to the numbers Mr. Blair just referenced, for Rutherford County, for these teaching positions in this component, it is 49.9%, just under 50%. The rest of it is that 50.1% is entirely local money.
Local dollars.
So they're not funding it.
Well, some of that is our required local match of the BEP, the 38.2 million piece. That is our required local match. But the blue and the orange above it, that is what we fund above. Those are the pieces that take us from 73.3% state funding to 49.9%.
That's a little eye-opening. At least it was for me. So.
I know that 49% is not 75%.
Right.
I mean,
it was
I'm
pretty
that
eye-opening for
Well,
county mayor.
I picked up on that too.
When Mr. Estes and I went to the in-service last summer, they spent, and y'all had already done all that. Ms. Moore, you were there too. We all sat at the same table. They spent an hour and a half explaining to us what the state was not funding and had promised to fund. I just won't say these things out loud, so I did. So I wish they would fund. If they would fund at 75%, we wouldn't have to go down to the county courthouse and ask for a tax increase. Wouldn't have to do it this year or next.
Another piece, which I was trying not to get too complex in this, is the BEP allocation includes a building program component. We are fortunate, our county commission, we have always been allowed to use that as part of our operations. The GPS budget does not include the debt service for school construction. That's what Mayor Burgess is focusing on also, that if we added that piece for debt service, and it varies from year to year, but we would have another section on top of this graph about the same, 20-some to 30-some million, depending on where we are at the time. So, yeah.
You mentioned these are classroom teaching positions.
Yes.
So do these include educational assistants?
No, I just looked at the teachers, because that piece I felt I could get apples to apples.
Right.
Anything else, it gets pretty blurred.
Okay.
No administrators either, correct?
I would have to look at my file on that.
Some of your EAs may come through a Title I federal or
Yeah.
a special ed federal or something, so they get much more
Look
mixed.
that.
Right.
Are you looking something up, Mr.?
I've noticed when I've compared our system to some of those systems that are struggling and have, are in the discussion of the legislature's rationale for vouchers and such, the same student-to-teacher ratio is present because it's state law. And so we find about a 1 to 28 student-to-teacher ratio in Rutherford County schools, in Metro Davidson, in Shelby County, Memphis, Knox County. We find consistency there. And where it's tremendously different is when you have the supervision of the adults. In Rutherford County, we have one administrator for every 22 teachers, I believe it is. And in Metro Davidson, one administrator for every 7 teachers. That could be an indicator as to something that needed to be adjusted. Or maybe an indicator of a successful system.
And the instructional component does include all certified staff out in the schools. And then there's some people who move between schools.
All certified staff.
Right.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Sandvig.
I think it might be proper at this point, since somebody mentioned Mayor Burgess, that he has said, well, at least 3 times publicly, and including the other day, I believe, that this week, that he wanted to form a committee, and I can't speak directly to that, but to try to explain to the Department of Education and the state legislature that we needed more help. We could not sustain our tremendous growth on the backs of the property taxpayer. And in other words, he needs revenue streams that make sense. And I think I'm expressing his thoughts here, that he wanted to, since Rutherford Countyans, of course he's Rutherford County mayor, that they were paying heavy state taxes, 10% sales, and other fees and whatever, and that they were going to have to get more money back. They were just going to they're going to have to help us out more and fund more of the BEP and do a better job there. Now, I don't know how that's going to come out, but in my judgment, he's exactly right. I think that's exactly correct. There's no way for us to double the school children in this county over the next 25 years and not get more money from the state. We cannot sustain it. Our property taxpayers cannot pay it.
You know, the laws are written basically on sales tax. Much more of that goes to your municipalities, your cities, and it had a very good lobbying group.
Yes, they
that was
did.
written. People in the county still come into their local Publix, Kroger, whatever, very often, but that winds up mostly city. In fact, he made a statement, and Jeff, you may explain this better than I can, that I listened to him the other day and I found interesting. And it was that he talked about some reimbursement from the state tax. And that was a statewide tax that he said that Rutherford County got $0 in and Musburg City got $8 million back for it.
I do not know the details on that.
But he did use that figure, and it caught my attention. My goodness, what is that?
One topic that comes up often at budget committees at the courthouse is, it's gotten a little better because of Dollar General stores and all, but the county gets very little sales tax because most of the retail establishments are in the municipalities. Mr. Odom, do you want to mention the growth fund, the $10 million?
Well, and I've done that before here. You know, a few years ago, the Department of Education did include in their budget $25 million to be shared by the fastest growing school districts in Tennessee. One of the reasons is because property tax runs really a year behind. We move in a house today, it's not on until the property tax rolls to be collected until, 2017. So it runs behind, so they had this $25 million. That's been lowered to $10 million for the last 3-4 years, something like that. They phased it down, and they have not raised it this year. So they backed away from funding, Mr. Jordan, the fastest growing school districts. They stepped back from that. Now, we are anticipating, based on our percent growth this year, to receiving some funds. Last year, when the city opened Overall Creek and they did the percentages, and it's not based on how many students you get, it's based on the percentage. So when you look at that and see, we're going to get a little slice of that pie of the 10 million, but it's not the 25 million pie that we'll get a slice of. That's what you were talking about.
And then the other piece for us to remember, because that pool of growth money, the BEP formula is funded on your prior year's attendance. So our growth students, the only state funding we get for them this year, over 1,200, is from this growth money. We got $1.4 million for our first installment. We won't know we often don't know the final amount until when we go to the July commission meeting late June. We will get no more than $1,200 per student, $1,200 to $1,400 per student. Right now, it looks like that is less than the state funding. So we're also having to cover that out of local funds.
And I'm very glad that we are sustained and growing. I read an article this afternoon that Maryville was facing multiple year budget cuts because of declining enrollment. So some of the counties and districts right around the metro Nashville area are the ones being hardest hit. When you look at the Williamson, the Rutherford, the Sumner, the Wilson, you're seeing a very different situation than what's across the state of Tennessee.
Thank you, Mr. Odom. Thank you, Mr. Sandvik. Anybody else? All right. Ms. Michaels, we're back together when? Mark your calendars. Nothing else. We stand adjourned.